Captain Jamin walked slowly across the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Dawn. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he moved to the big window that showed space outside. The view made him stop and stare. Thousands of alien ships filled the darkness around them, ships so big they looked like floating city ships with strange shapes that hurt to look at. Ships that glowed with colors he had no names for. The largest fleet anyone had ever seen was gathered here in this empty part of space. The human ship looked very small next to all these giant alien vessels. It was like a tiny fish swimming next to whales. The Eternal Dawn was a good ship, but it was just one ship, one single human ship in an ocean of alien warships. Lieutenant Hyjin sat at her station watching the communication systems beep and flash with incoming messages. Her face looked worried as more and more alien ships tried to talk to them. She turned to look at her captain. Captain, the aliens are sending us many messages. They all want to know the same thing. They want to know where the rest of our fleet is. Jamin nodded but did not look surprised. He had expected this. The other species did not understand humans, yet they thought like most beings in the galaxy. They believed that more ships meant more power. They could not see past the simple math of numbers. Show me the first message, he said. The main screen lit up with the face of an alien creature that looked like a giant lizard covered in red scales. Its eyes were yellow and its teeth were sharp and white. This was Admiral Vexstar of the Crimson Horde, one of the most feared military leaders in the galaxy. Human captain, the alien spoke with a voice like grinding rocks. Your people have sent only one small ship to face the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. Did your homeworld forget about this meeting? Did they think this was some kind of joke? Other faces appeared on smaller screens around the bridge, more alien commanders from different species, all asking similar questions. A creature made of living metal asked where Earth had hidden its real fleet. A being that looked like floating crystals wondered if humans were too scared to send their best ships. Captain Jamin listened to all the questions without changing his expression. His crew watched him carefully, waiting to see how he would respond. They had all wondered the same things when they left Earth. Why had command chosen to send only the Eternal Dawn? Why not a whole battle group? Why not their newest and strongest ship? Ensign Du Hyan, who was very young, and this was his first big mission, leaned over to whisper to his captain, Sir, their fleets could destroy entire star systems. Why did Earth command send only us? What if we are not enough? The captain smiled in a way that made the young officer feel better. Jamin had served in space for many years. He had seen many battles and many strange things. His calm way of acting helped his crew stay brave even when things looked impossible. Sometimes, Ensign, one ship is all you need, he said quietly. And sometimes the real question is not why we sent one ship, but why they needed to bring so many. The communication officer, Hyjin, pressed a button to respond to the alien messages. Captain, we should answer them. They are getting impatient. Put me on the main channel. Jamin said. The screen changed to show his face to all the alien fleets. He looked calm and confident, even though he knew thousands of alien weapons were pointed at his small ship. I am Captain Jamin of the Earth vessel Eternal Dawn, he began. We received the call for help just like all of you. We came here to fight the same enemy that threatens us all, but where are your other ships? Admiral Vexstar interrupted. His reptilian face showed anger and confusion. One ship cannot make any difference against the Devourers. Captain Jamin was quiet for a moment. He looked at the faces of the alien commanders on his screen. All of them looked angry or confused or both. They thought humans were either very stupid or very weak. Maybe they thought humans were both. The Devourers were coming. This was why all these fleets had gathered. The Devourers were an ancient race of machines that ate entire worlds. They had been sleeping for thousands of years, but now they were waking up. Every species in the galaxy was terrified of them. Long ago, the Devourers had destroyed civilizations that were much more advanced than any species alive today. They had weapons that could break planets and ships that could repair themselves no matter how much damage they took. The only reason any life still existed in the galaxy was because the Devourers had gone to sleep after running out of things to destroy. Now they were waking up, and every species knew that this might be the last battle anyone would ever fight. Either they would win here, or the galaxy would become empty and dead. This is why the alien fleets were so huge. Every Species had brought everything they had, millions of ships from hundreds of different worlds, all the strongest weapons and the best soldiers. This was not just a battle, this was the final test of whether life could survive in their galaxy, and humanity had sent one ship. The alien commanders were still waiting for an answer, Captain. Jamin could see the doubt in their strange eyes. They had heard stories about humans, but most aliens still thought of Earth as a young and weak world. Humans had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years, while these other species had been building empires for thousands of years. We brought what we needed, Jamin finally said. Our ship may look small to you, but it carries something more valuable than the biggest weapons or the strongest armor. What could possibly be more valuable than firepower? Asked another alien commander. This one looked like a giant insect with too many arms. The human captain smiled again. Knowledge, understanding, the ability to see problems in new ways. We studied everything we could find about the Devourers. We learned about their past battles. We know how they think. The aliens made sounds that might have been laughter in their different languages. A few of them looked insulted that these newcomer humans thought they could teach ancient species anything new. You have been in space for less than 1,000 years, said a voice like singing crystals. We have fought wars since before your species discovered fire. What could you possibly know that we do not? Captain Jamin looked out at the massive alien fleets again. So many ships, so many weapons, so much raw power. But power without wisdom was often useless. He had learned this lesson many times in his career. The biggest hammer was not always the best tool for every job. Lieutenant Wu Jin, his security chief, stepped up beside him. The tall Korean man had been with Jamin for 5 years and trusted his captain completely. Sir, he said quietly, the aliens are right about one thing. The Devourers are incredibly dangerous. Our intelligence reports show they have technology we can barely understand. I know, Jamin replied. But they also have weaknesses. Every system has weaknesses. The other species are so focused on matching the Devourer's strength that they cannot see the simple solutions. Dr. So Young, the ship's science officer, looked up from her computer station. Captain, I have been analyzing the data the aliens shared about Devourer attacks. The patterns are very interesting. What kind of patterns? They always attack the same way every time. They use overwhelming force and advanced technology, but they never change their basic strategy. They are like a very smart but very predictable machine. Jamin nodded. This was exactly what he had hoped to hear. The Devourers were powerful and ancient, but they were also limited by their nature. They could not think in new ways like humans could. The alien fleets were still sending messages. Some were angry, some were worried, and some were starting to ignore the human ship entirely. They had decided that one small human vessel could not help them against the coming darkness. But Captain Jamin was not worried. His crew was the best Earth had to offer, and his ship carried something the aliens did not expect: human creativity and the willingness to try impossible things. Soon the Devourers would arrive, and the galaxy would see why sometimes one ship was enough. The assembly station was the biggest space station anyone had ever built. It was like a small moon made of metal and glass floating in the darkness. Representatives from every species in the galaxy had come here to talk about the Devourers and what they should do when the ancient machines woke up. Captain Jamin walked through the long hallways of the station with his team. Lieutenant Wu Jin stayed close to his captain, ready to protect him if any aliens caused trouble. Dr. So Young carried a data pad filled with information about the Devourers that Earth scientists had discovered. The main meeting hall was enormous. It had to be big enough for creatures of all different sizes. Some aliens were as small as human children, while others were as big as elephants. The walls were made of a special material that let everyone breathe the air they needed to stay alive. Thousands of beings filled the great hall. Some floated in the air while others crawled on the floor. Many had shapes that human eyes found hard to understand. There were creatures made of gas and others made of living rock. Some looked like giant insects while others seemed to be made of pure light. At the front of the hall stood the elders. These were the oldest beings in the galaxy, so old that they remembered when the Devourers had been awake before. Their memories went back thousands and thousands of years to the time of the first Great War. Elder Nyx Era stepped forward to speak. She was a being of pure energy trapped inside a crystal shell that glowed with soft blue light. Her voice sounded like music, but sad music that made everyone feel afraid. My fellow beings, she began. The time we have all feared is coming. The Devourers are awakening from their long sleep. Our sensors have detected their ships moving in the dark spaces between stars. They will be here soon. The hall became very quiet. Everyone knew about the Devourers from old stories and ancient records. They were the nightmare that every species feared, the destroyers of worlds, the eaters of civilizations long ago. Elder Nick's era continued. There were species in this galaxy that were far more advanced than any of us today. They had technology that we cannot even imagine. They could build planets and move stars, but the Devourers came and destroyed them all. She showed pictures on the big screens around the hall, images of dead worlds where great cities had once stood, pictures of space filled with the broken pieces of enormous ships that had been defeated in the last war. The makers who built the first stargates are gone. The architects who taught us how to travel between dimensions are gone. The gardeners who could make new forms of life are gone, all destroyed by the Devourers. Captain Jamin listened carefully to every word. He had read about these lost civilizations, but seeing the pictures made the danger feel more real. The Devourers had destroyed beings who were like gods compared to the current species. In the galaxy we survived the last war only by running away, Elder Nixera said. We hid in the furthest corners of space and waited for the Devourers to go back to sleep, but now they are waking up, and we have nowhere left to run. This time we must fight, or everything will end. Commander Zulkan of the Iron Pact stood up to speak. He was a warrior from a species that looked like robots but were actually alive. His body was made of metal, but his mind was organic. He had 4 arms, and each one held a different weapon. Our combined fleets have over 10 million ships, he announced with pride. We have weapons that can crack moons and shields that can stop supernovas. We are not the same weak beings who ran away last time. We will fight the Devourers, and we will win. Many aliens in the hall made sounds of agreement. They felt better hearing about all their ships and weapons. It made them think they might have a chance against the ancient enemy, but then Commander Zulkan pointed one of his metal arms at Captain Jamin. And yet the humans bring only one small ship. How can they think one vessel will make any difference against an enemy that destroyed the gods of the ancient galaxy? Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at the small group of humans. Captain Jamin could feel their doubt and anger. Many of them thought humans were insulting the memory of the destroyed civilizations by bringing so little help. Some aliens made angry noises. Others laughed in ways that sounded mean. A few just shook their heads as if humans were too stupid to understand how serious this war would better. So Young whispered to her captain, the data I have been studying shows something important about the Devourers. The other species are not seeing the full picture. What do you mean? Jamin asked quietly. They think the Devourers won because they had better weapons and bigger ships, but the historical records show something different. The Devourers won because they could adapt faster than anyone else could change their plans. Lieutenant Wu Jin frowned as he thought about this. That means all these big fleets might not help much if the enemy can just copy whatever attacks we use against them. Exactly, Dr. So Young said. The ancient records show that every species tried to fight the Devourers the same way with bigger and bigger weapons, but the Devourers just learned from each attack and became stronger. Captain Jamin stood up slowly. All the noise in the great hall began to quiet down as the other beings noticed the human was going to speak. Many of them were curious to hear what the human would say. Others looked annoyed that this weak species dared to interrupt their important meeting. If I may speak, he said in a clear voice that carried across the huge room. Elder Nixera raised one of her crystal arms for complete silence. Sometimes the youngest voices carry the oldest wisdom. Let the human speak. Thank you, honored Elder Captain. Jamin began. We have studied all the records you shared with us about the Devourer Wars. We have learned much from your ancient knowledge. But we have also noticed some things that may have been overlooked. The hall erupted with angry sounds. Many aliens could not believe that these newcomer humans thought they knew better than species who had been alive for millions of years. A creature that looked like a living tree with too many branches stood up and spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Young species, you have been in space for only a few centuries. We have fought wars since before your son was born. What could you possibly tell us that we do not already know? Captain Jamin waited for the noise to die down before he answered. I'm not trying to teach you about. War-honored beings, you know much more about fighting than we do, but sometimes when you have been looking at a problem for a very long time, it helps to have someone look at it with fresh eyes. They are so young, stepped forward with her datapad, Captain. If I may show them what we discovered, the main screens around the hall lit up with charts and graphs that showed devourer attack patterns from the ancient wars. The information came from records that all the species had shared, but it was organized in a way that none of them had tried before. Look at these patterns. Dr. So Young explained every devourer attack followed the same basic plan. They would send scout ships to study their enemy, then they would send exactly the right amount of force. To win, they never sent more ships than they needed, and they never attacked the same way twice. But that means they are predictable, said a voice from the crowd. Exactly. Dr. So Young replied, they are incredibly smart and they can adapt to any situation. But they always follow logical patterns. They think like the most advanced computers in the universe, which means they have the same weakness as any computer system. What weakness? Asked Elder Nixera. Her crystal body was glowing brighter as she became more interested. Captain Jamin smiled. They can be reprogrammed. The hall fell silent as thousands of alien minds tried to understand what the human meant. Most of them had been thinking about this war as a battle of ships against ships, weapons against weapons, but the humans were suggesting something completely different. Commander Zelkon made a sound like grinding metal. You think you can hack into devourer systems? Many have tried this before. All have failed. We are not talking about normal hacking. Captain Jamin said, we are talking about something much more direct. Something that requires getting very close to their command systems, something that probably means whoever tries it will not survive. The silence in the hall became even deeper. Now, the aliens were starting to understand why humanity had sent only one ship. If the plan was for someone to sacrifice themselves to save the galaxy, then it made sense to risk as few lives as possible. Elder Nixera spoke in a voice full of sadness and hope. Human Captain, are you saying your people came here to die for us? Captain Jamin looked around at all the strange faces watching him, beings from worlds he had never seen, species with thoughts he could never fully understand, but they were all alive, and they all wanted to stay alive, just like humans did. We came here to live, he said simply. But if dying is what it takes to save everyone, then yes, we are prepared to do that too. That is what it means to be human. Back on the Eternal Dawn, the crew worked like they had never worked before. Chief Engineer Park had not slept for 2 days straight. His team was spread all over the ship, checking every system and preparing for what might be their final mission. The engine room was hot and filled with the sound of machines working at their limits. Park wiped sweat from his face as he looked at the data streaming across his computer screens. He had been studying everything the aliens had shared about Devourer technology. Captain Jamin walked into the engine room to check on his chief engineer. The smell of hot metal and electrical systems filled the air. Around them, dozens of crew members were working on different parts of the ship. How are we doing, Park? He asked. Park looked up from his workstation with tired eyes, but an excited smile. Captain, I think I found it. The thing that no one else has seen. What did you find? The Devourers are not just machines, Park explained. They are connected to each other through something like a giant brain that spreads across space. Every Devourer ship talks to every other ship instantly, no matter how far apart they are. Jamin nodded. This was similar to what Dr. So Young had told him before. The Devourers shared their thoughts and knowledge with each other, which made them incredibly dangerous. But Park continued, this connection is also their biggest weakness. If we can get close enough to their main command ship, we might be able to put a virus into their shared brain system, a virus that would make them confused about who their enemies really are. Lieutenant Wu Jin had followed the captain to the engine room. When he heard this, his face became very serious. Captain, that would mean getting within a few hundred meters of their most heavily defended ship. No one has ever gotten that close to a Devourer command vessel and lived. Dr. So Young appeared on the communication screen from her science lab. Captain, I have been working on the same problem. The virus would need to be uploaded directly into their central processing core. We cannot do it from a distance. How close would we need to get? Jamin asked. Less than 100 meters, Dr. So Young replied, and we would need to stay connected to their systems for at least 60 seconds to make sure the virus spreads to their entire fleet. The engine room became quiet except for the sound of the machines. Everyone who heard this knew what it meant. This was not just a dangerous mission, it was almost certainly a suicide mission. Ensign Duhayan, who had been listening, spoke up with a shaking voice. "Sir, their weapons can destroy our ship from thousands of kilometers away. How could we possibly get that close?" Chief Engineer Park had been thinking about this problem too. "I have an idea," he said. "It is crazy, but it might work." The captain waited for his engineer to explain. "What? If we do not try to fight our way to their command ship," Park said. "What if we let them capture us instead?" Everyone stared at the chief engineer as if he had lost his mind. "Think about it," Park continued. "The Devourers want information about the species they are fighting. They always study their enemies before they destroy them. If we make them think our ship contains important intelligence about Earth, they might bring us inside their command vessel to examine us." Lieutenant Wujin slowly nodded as he understood the plan. "We could prepare false data that makes it look like our ship knows all about Earth defenses and human military secrets, and while they are examining our fake information," Dr. So Young added from the screen, "we could upload the real virus into their central system." Captain Jamin thought about this plan for a long time. It was incredibly risky. If the Devourers discovered what they were really trying to do, they would destroy the ship immediately. But if it worked, they might be able to save not just their galaxy, but every form of life in the universe. Meanwhile, communications from the alien fleets kept coming, and Admiral Vextar sent several messages asking when the humans would retreat to a safe distance. Commander Zolkan wanted to know if Earth had any secret weapons they were hiding. Lieutenant Hyjin at her communication station looked worried. "Captain, the alien commanders are getting impatient. They want to start moving their fleets into attack formation. They think you are wasting time with impossible plans." "Put me through to all fleet commanders," Jamin ordered. The main screen lit up with dozens of alien faces. All of them looked tense and ready for war. Some looked angry that the human was calling another meeting when they should be preparing for battle. Admiral Vextar spoke first. "Human Captain, our scouts report that the first Devourer ships will arrive in 18 hours. We need to position our fleets now. If you cannot help us, then please move your ship out of our way." Captain Jamin looked at all the alien commanders on his screen. These beings had brought everything they had to this fight: millions of ships, billions of soldiers, weapons that could destroy solar systems. They were prepared to throw all of it at the Devourers and hope that raw power would be enough. "Honorable commanders," he began, "I understand. Your eagerness to fight this enemy has haunted your people for thousands of years, and you want to destroy them before they can hurt anyone." Again, several aliens made sounds of agreement. They had been waiting for this battle for so long that they could hardly think about anything else. "But may I ask you something? What if there was a way to win this war without losing millions of ships and billions of lives? Would you be interested in hearing about Ida, creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of water?" Spoke up Human. "There is no way to defeat the Devourers without massive casualties. The ancient records make this very clear." Dr. So Young appeared on a smaller screen next to the captain. "Honorable beings, with respect, the ancient records also show that every previous battle was fought the same way. Everyone tried to match the Devourers' strength with strength, but no one ever tried to use their connection against them." "What do you mean?" asked Elder Nixera, who had joined the communication from the assembly station. Captain Jamin took a deep breath. "The Devourers share a collective consciousness. Every ship is connected to every other ship. This makes them incredibly powerful, but it also means that if we can introduce confusion into their shared mind, they might turn on each other." The alien faces on the screen showed mixtures of hope and doubt. Many of them had never heard this idea before. Commander Zalkan made his grinding metal sound again. "And how exactly would you introduce this confusion into their systems?" "We would need to get very close to their command ship," Captain Jamin admitted. "Close enough to upload a specially designed virus directly into their central processing core." The screen filled with sounds of alarm and disbelief from dozens of different species. Getting that close to a Devourer command ship was considered impossible. Admiral Vextar was the first to speak again. "Human, that is suicide. Even our most advanced stealth ships could never get within 1,000 kilometers of their flagship. That is why we would not use stealth. Lieutenant Wu Jin said, stepping into view. We would let them capture us. The alien commanders fell silent as they tried to understand this plan. We would make them think our ship contains vital intelligence about human defenses. Captain Jamin explained. While they are examining our fake data, we would upload the real virus into their system. Being made of living crystals asked the question that everyone was thinking: what happens to your crew when the Devourers discover what you have done? Captain Jamin was quiet for a moment. He looked around at his crew, who were all listening to this conversation. Every one of them knew that they might not survive the next day. We knew the risk when we volunteered for this mission. He finally said, if our sacrifice can save the galaxy, then it is a price we are willing to pay. Chief Engineer Park stepped forward. Captain, the virus is ready. We have tested it on every simulation we could create. If we can upload it successfully, the Devourers should begin attacking each other within minutes. Dr. So Young nodded from her screen. The confusion should spread through their entire fleet before they can adapt to stop it. Lieutenant Wu Jin checked his security equipment one more time. Sir, my teams are prepared to hold off any boarding parties long enough for you to reach their central core. Admiral Vexstar looked amazed and horrified. At the same time, human captain, you are either the bravest beings in the galaxy or the most foolish captain. Jamin smiled. Maybe we are both, Admiral, but this is what humans do. When everyone else sees an impossible problem, we see a puzzle that needs solving. The alien fleets began moving into new positions, spreading out so they would not interfere with the human plan. Some commanders still thought it was hopeless, but they were willing to let the humans try as the Eternal Dawn prepared for its final mission. Captain Jamin made one last announcement to his crew. Everyone listen carefully. What we are about to do has never been attempted before. We are going to fly directly into the mouth of the most dangerous enemy our galaxy has ever known. We might not survive, but if we succeed, every living being in the universe will remember what we did here today. The crew responded with determination in their voices. They were scared, but they were also proud to be part of something so important. Chief Engineer Park made final adjustments to the virus program. Dr. So Young checked her calculations one more time. Lieutenant Wu Jin distributed weapons to every crew member who could fight, and Captain Jamin stood on his bridge looking out at the stars, knowing that in a few hours they would either be heroes or they would be dead. Space itself seemed to scream when the Devourers arrived. Their ships came out of the darkness like nightmares made real. The smallest vessels were the size of human cities, while their largest command ships were as big as moons, but size was not the most terrifying thing about them. The Devourer ships were alive. Metal flowed like water across their hulls, changing shape as they moved through the metal. Strange organic parts grew and died and grew again. Eyes opened along their sides, blinking and staring at the alien fleets. Mouths full of teeth appeared and disappeared, making sounds that traveled through space itself. Captain Jamin watched from the bridge of the Eternal Dawn as the monster fleet took position. The human ship hung back behind the main alien battle lines, watching and waiting for the right moment. Sir, Lieutenant Haijin reported with fear in her voice. I am reading over 50,000 Devourer ships, and more are still arriving. Dr. So Young looked up from her science station. Captain, these readings are impossible. Their energy signatures keep changing. I cannot get a stable lock on any of their vessels. The alien fleets did not wait to see what the Devourers would do. Admiral Vexstar gave the order to attack, and suddenly, space filled with weapons fire. Every species unleashed everything they had at the approaching enemy. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids fired streams of superheated gas toward the Devourer fleet. Energy beams that could cut through planets lanced across the darkness. Missiles with warheads that could destroy moons streaked toward their targets for a few seconds. It looked like the massive alien assault might actually work. The Devourer ships were hit by more firepower than had ever been used in a single battle. Explosions bright enough to blind unprotected eyes lit up space, but then something terrible happened. The Devourer ships began to heal themselves. The holes blown in their hulls closed up like wounds on living skin. The metal that had been melted by plasma beams flowed back together like water. Parts that had been completely destroyed grew back in seconds, and then they started firing back. The weapons that came from the Devourer ships were not just copies of what had been fired at them. They were improved versions that were faster and more deadly than anything the aliens had ever seen. A Crimson Horde battleship that could survive the explosion of a star was cut in half by a beam of energy so intense it made space itself glow. An iron-packed dreadnought with armor made from compressed matter was dissolved by acid that ate through dimensions. A crystalline collective carrier the size of a small moon simply disappeared when reality around it was turned inside out. Captain, by the void, whispered Admiral Vexstar over the communication channel. They are learning from our attacks faster than we can fire them. Chief Engineer Park was watching the battle on his screens while still working on the virus program. Captain, every weapon the aliens use gets copied and improved by the Devourers within seconds. They are not just defending themselves, they are getting stronger. Lieutenant Wu Jin stood at his security station watching alien ships die. By the thousands, sir. At this rate, the entire alien fleet will be destroyed within an hour. Dr. So Young called out from her science lab. Captain, I am detecting massive changes in the Devourer formation. They are adapting their tactics in real time. They are learning how each alien species fights and developing counters for every strategy. The battle was becoming a massacre. The alien commanders had brought millions of ships, thinking that sheer numbers would overwhelm any enemy, but the Devourers were not being overwhelmed. They were barely even slowed down. Every few seconds, another massive alien warship exploded or disappeared. The proud fleets that had come to save the galaxy were being torn apart by an enemy that seemed to get stronger. With every attack, Admiral Vexstar, his reptilian face now showing pure terror, sent a desperate message to all surviving ships. Retreat, all ships retreat immediately. We cannot win this battle. But retreat was not an option for most of the alien vessels. The Devourers had surrounded them and were systematically hunting down every ship that tried to escape. Commander Zulkan managed to send one final message before his flagship was destroyed. Tell the galaxy that we tried, tell them that we fought with honor even though we failed. Captain Jamin watched the slaughter with a heavy heart. These brave beings had come here to defend their homes and families, and now they were dying because no one had ever found a better way to fight the Devourers, sir. Ensign Duhayan said quietly, should we retreat too, our plan might not work, and if we die here, Earth will have no warning about what is coming. No. Captain Jamin replied, we stay. This is why we came here. Lieutenant Haijin was monitoring the Devourer communications, which were mostly impossible to understand, but her computers were finding patterns in the strange signals. Captain, I think I know why they are so good at adapting to our attacks. They are not just learning from what we do, they are sharing everything they learn with every other ship. Instantly, Dr. So Young nodded from her screen. That confirms our theory about their collective consciousness, but it also means our virus should spread through their entire fleet just as quickly. Once we upload it, if we can upload it, Chief Engineer Park added, the problem is getting close enough to their command ship without being destroyed first. The largest Devourer vessel was moving toward the center of the battle. It was so big that it had its own gravity field. Smaller ships orbited around it like moons around a planet. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. That is their flagship, Lieutenant Wu Jin said, studying the tactical displays. If their collective consciousness has a central core, it would be inside that ship. How do we get their attention? Captain Jamin asked his crew. Chief Engineer Park had been working on this problem. We broadcast a signal that makes it look like our ship contains detailed information about Earth military capabilities. We make them think we have intelligence about human weapons and defenses. Dr. So Young was already preparing the false data. I can create files that show fake human fleets, fake weapon specifications, fake planetary defense systems, anything that would make them want to capture us alive, but we have to make it believable, Lieutenant Wu Jin added. If they think we are trying to trick them, they will just destroy us from a distance. Captain Jamin made his decision. Do it. Prepare the false intelligence files and start broadcasting them on all frequencies. Make the Devourers think that capturing our ship is the most important thing they can do, as his crew worked to prepare the trap. Captain Jamin sent one final message to the surviving alien ships. This is Captain Jamin of the human vessel Eternal Dawn. To any ships receiving this message, please retreat to minimum safe distance. We are about to attempt something that has never been tried before. Admiral Vexstar, whose Ship was badly damaged, but still fighting, managed to respond. Human captain, what are you doing? We are going to surrender to them, Captain Jamin replied. The few alien ships that could still communicate filled the channel with sounds of shock and disbelief. Captain, you cannot surrender to the Devourers. Elder Nixera called from the assembly station. They do not take prisoners, they only destroy. We are not really surrendering, Captain Jamin said. Calmly, we are giving them exactly what they want, a chance to study human technology and learn our weaknesses. But Sir Ensign, Duhayan whispered, if this plan does not work, then the galaxy will remember that we tried, Captain Jamin replied, and sometimes that is all anyone can do. The false intelligence files were ready. Chief Engineer Park had created fake specifications for thousands of human ships that did not exist. Dr. So Young had invented defensive systems that sounded impressive but were completely imaginary. Lieutenant Wu Jin had prepared false battle plans that made Earth look much more dangerous than it really was. Lieutenant Hai Jin began broadcasting the fake data on all frequencies. Captain, the signal is transmitting. The Devourers should be able to detect it almost immediately. The massive Devourer command ship changed course. It began moving toward the small human vessel while smaller ships formed a protective circle around it. They are taking the bait, Dr. So Young reported from her lab. Captain, they are definitely interested in what we are broadcasting. Chief Engineer Park made final checks on the real virus that they would try to upload. The program was hidden inside their ship's computer systems, waiting for the right moment. Lieutenant Wu Jin distributed weapons to every crew member who could fight. They all knew they would probably have to hold off Devourer boarding parties while their captain and science team tried to reach the enemy. Corps Captain Jamin stood on his bridge, watching the huge alien ship approach. His small vessel looked like a tiny insect next to the massive Devourer flagship. But sometimes the smallest things could cause the biggest changes. Are you ready? He asked his crew. Yes, sir, they answered together. Then let us go save the galaxy. The Eternal Dawn powered down its engines and stopped firing its weapons. Captain Jamin ordered all systems to minimum power, making the ship look helpless and defeated. The small human vessel drifted in space while the massive Devourer command ship approached. On every screen, surrender signals flashed in dozens of alien languages. The message was simple: we give up, please do not destroy us. We have valuable information. Chief Engineer Park watched his instruments as the enemy ship came closer. Captain, they are scanning us very thoroughly. They can see all our fake intelligence files. Good, Captain Jamin replied. Let them think they have found something important. So Young was monitoring the Devourer communication signals from her science lab. Their interest level is increasing dramatically. They definitely want to examine our ship more closely. The enemy command vessel was so large that it blocked out the stars as it approached. Strange appendages began extending from its hull, reaching toward the small human ship like the tentacles of some cosmic octopus. Lieutenant Wu Jin checked his weapons one more time. Sir, once we are inside their ship, we will have maybe 10 minutes before they realize what we are really doing. I know, Captain. Jamin said, are your security teams ready? Yes, sir, we will hold them off as long as we can. The ship shuddered as massive mechanical arms grabbed the hull and began pulling them toward an opening in the Devourer vessel. The opening was like a mouth, filled with metal teeth that moved and shifted as they watched. Tensine Duhayan tried not to look scared as he monitored the ship's status. Captain, they are pulling us inside. Their gravity field is much stronger than Earth normal. Dr. So Young appeared on the main screen from her lab. The virus is ready for upload, Captain. Once we connect to their central core, I can begin the transfer immediately. Lieutenant Hyjin was recording everything that happened so that if anyone survived, they would have a record. Captain, should I send a final message to the alien fleets? Yes, tell them that if they never hear from us again, they should remember that sometimes victory does not come from having the biggest weapons. Sometimes it comes from being willing to risk everything for others. The small human ship was pulled deeper into the belly of the enormous Devourer vessel. The walls around them were covered with patterns that moved and changed. Lights pulsed in rhythms that seemed almost like heartbeats. Strange sounds echoed through the metal corridors, sounds that were not quite mechanical and not quite organic. The Devourers were machines, but they were also something else, something that had evolved far beyond what their creators had intended. Captain Jae-min felt the artificial gravity change as they were moved to what seemed to be an examination area. The Devourers wanted to study their prize before destroying its security. Teams to positions he ordered Lieutenant Wu Jin and his soldiers took up defensive positions throughout the ship. They had practiced this plan many times, but they all knew that practice was very different from reality. The ship settled into place with a loud clang that echoed through the hull. Almost immediately, they could hear sounds from outside, mechanical feet walking on metal floors, strange voices speaking in languages that hurt to listen to. They are coming, Chief Engineer Park reported from his station. I can hear them cutting through our outer hull. They are so young. Gathered her equipment and prepared to leave her lab. Captain, I have the virus loaded into a portable transmitter. We need to find their central core and connect directly to it. How long will the upload take? At least 60 seconds for the program to fully integrate into their system, but once it starts spreading through their network, it should reach every ship in their fleet within minutes. The first breach came at the cargo bay. Lieutenant Wu Jin and his team were waiting with weapons ready. As the metal wall was cut open, strange shapes began pouring through the gap. The Devourer troops were nightmares made of metal and flesh. Some walked on two legs like humans but had extra arms growing from their backs. Others crawled on multiple limbs that ended in sharp claws. A few floated in the air, surrounded by fields of crackling energy. Open fire, Lieutenant Wu Jin shouted. The human weapons lit up the corridor with energy beams and projectiles. The Devourers were hit and some fell, but they kept coming. More and more of them poured through the breach. Captain, you need to go now, Lieutenant Wu Jin called over the sound of battle. We cannot hold them for long. Captain Jae-min, Dr. So-young, and Chief Engineer Park ran through the ship toward the maintenance shafts that would take them deeper into the Devourer vessel. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of fighting as their brave crew held the line. The maintenance shafts were narrow and dark, but they led toward the center of the enemy ship where the central processing core would be located. Park had studied the scans of Devourer vessels and thought he knew the way. This direction, he whispered, pointing down a shaft that glowed with strange light. They crawled through spaces barely big enough for human bodies. The walls around them pulsed with energy, and sometimes they could hear voices speaking in the alien language. The Devourers were trying to decode the human intelligence files. How much time do we have, Doctor? So-young asked as they crawled. Maybe 5 minutes, Chief Engineer Park replied. Once they realize the files are fake, they will start looking for us. They reached a larger chamber filled with machinery that defied understanding. Crystalline structures grew from metal bases while streams of liquid light flowed between them. In the center was something that looked like a giant brain made of circuits and organic matter. That is it, Dr. So-young whispered. The central processing core. They climbed down into the chamber, moving as quietly as they could. The core was protected by energy fields, but Park had brought tools to bypass them. He began working while Dr. So-young prepared the virus transmitter. Behind them, they could hear alarms starting to sound throughout the ship. The Devourers had discovered that the human intelligence was fake. Now they would be hunting for the real threat. Almost there, Park said as he worked with the energy fields. 30 more seconds, but then they heard footsteps. Heavy mechanical sounds getting closer. The Devourers had found them. Captain Jae-min drew his weapon, knowing it would not be very effective against these enemies, but determined to protect his team. He turned toward the entrance to the chamber. The first Devourer unit that came through was huge, a combination of machine and something that might have been alive once. It had multiple arms, each ending in a different kind of weapon. Its eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence. 10 more seconds. Park called out. The monster raised one of its weapon arms toward Dr. So-young. Captain Jae-min fired his gun at it. The energy beam struck the creature but barely slowed it down. More Devourers were entering the chamber. Now they had realized that the humans were trying to do something to their central core, and they were very angry about it. 5 seconds. Dr. So-young was connecting the virus transmitter to the core. Her hands shook as she worked, but she did not stop. The fate of every living thing in the galaxy depended on the next few seconds. Upload complete, she shouted. The virus began flowing into the Devourer collective consciousness. It was a simple program designed to make them confused about who their enemies were. The code spread through their shared network faster than light. The effect was immediate. The Devourer units in the chamber suddenly stopped moving. Their eyes flickered as conflicting information flooded their minds. The virus was telling them that other devourers were the real threat, that they needed to defend themselves against their own fleet. One of the creatures turned and fired at another. The second one fired back within seconds. The chamber was filled with devourers fighting each other instead of attacking. The humans Dr. So-Young monitored the virus spread on her transmitter. "Captain, it is working. The program has reached their command network. It should be spreading to every ship in their fleet right now." Through the walls of the chamber they could hear explosions and the sound of weapons fire. The virus was causing chaos throughout the massive command ship as different sections began attacking each other. Captain Jamin grabbed Dr. So-Young and Chief Engineer Park. "We need to get back to our ship." Now they ran through corridors filled with confused and fighting devourers. The ancient enemies were so busy attacking each other that they barely noticed the humans running past them. When they reached the Eternal Dawn, they found Lieutenant Wu Jin and his surviving security team holding their positions but looking amazed. "Sir, what is happening?" The devourers stopped attacking. 3 days after the battle, the survivors gathered at the assembly station to count their losses and celebrate their victory. The Great Hall was much quieter now. Many of the representatives who had attended the first meeting were gone, their ships destroyed in the fighting. Captain Jamin walked slowly through the corridors of the station. His left arm was in a medical support device and he had bandages covering burns on his face. But he was alive, and so were most of his crew. The Eternal Dawn was being repaired in one of the station's docking bays. The ship had taken heavy damage during their escape from the Devourer command vessel, but Chief Engineer Park said she would fly again. Dr. So-Young carried a datapad filled with recordings of everything that had happened during their mission. Scientists from dozens of species wanted to study how the virus had worked. Many of them still could not believe that such a simple plan had defeated an enemy that had seemed invincible. Lieutenant Wu Jin walked beside his captain, still wearing his security uniform, but now it had metal ribbons from 3 different alien governments. The Ion Pact had declared him a hero of the Republic. The Crystalline Collective had made him an honorary Crystal Bearer. Even the proud Crimson Horde had given him their highest military decoration. The main hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy, but the mood was very different from the first meeting. Instead of fear and anger, there was something that had not existed in this place for thousands of years. Hope Elder Nyx Era stood at the front of the hall, her crystal body glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen it. She was old enough to remember the first Devourer War, and she had never expected to see this day. "Beings of the galaxy," she began, her musical voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. "We are gathered here to honor those who fell in the battle and to celebrate the victory that seemed impossible." The hall became quiet as she spoke. Many of the aliens present had lost friends and family members in the fighting. The victory had come at a terrible price. "We lost over 2 million ships in the battle," she continued. "Billions of brave souls gave their lives fighting an enemy that had haunted our nightmares for millennia, but they did not die in vain. Their sacrifice gave one small human ship the chance to do what our greatest fleets could not accomplish." All eyes turned to Captain Jamin and his crew. They felt uncomfortable being the center of attention. They had only done what they thought was right. Admiral Vextar stood up to speak. His reptilian features still showed the scars from the battle, but his yellow eyes were bright with respect. "When the humans first arrived, I thought they were fools," he said honestly. "One small ship against the greatest threat our galaxy had ever known. I could not understand what they hoped to accomplish." He looked directly at Captain Jamin. "But now I understand. They did not come here to match the Devourer's strength with strength. They came here to think of a solution that none of the rest of us could see." Commander Zhou Khan, who had barely survived when his flagship was destroyed, spoke next, his metal voice filled with emotion. "The humans proved that victory does not always belong to whoever has the biggest weapons or the most ships. Sometimes victory belongs to whoever can think of a better way to solve the problem." Dr. So-Young stepped forward with her data pad. "The virus we used was not particularly complex," she explained to the crowd. "What made it effective was understanding how the Devourers thought and using that knowledge against them." Chief Engineer Park nodded in agreement. The Devourers were incredibly advanced, but they were also predictable. They always followed logical patterns, which meant they could be confused by illogical ones, Lieutenant. Hyjin had been recording messages from across the galaxy. Captain, she said quietly, we are receiving communications from hundreds of worlds, thanking Earth for what we did. Some of them want to send gifts. Others want to establish trade agreements. Captain Jae-min smiled, but he looked tired. The attention was nice, but all he really wanted was to go home and see his family. He had been away from Earth for almost a year. Elder Nixera called for silence again. Before we conclude this gathering, I believe it is important that we all understand what really happened here. The humans did not win because they were stronger or more advanced than the Devourers. She paused to let her words sink in. They won because they were willing to sacrifice everything for beings they had never met, for worlds they had never seen, for species they barely knew. They risked their lives not for glory or reward, but because it was the right thing to do. A being that looked like a living tree with silver leaves stood up to speak. This is why the galaxy needs humans in it. Not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their hearts. More aliens began standing and speaking about what humanity had shown them. A creature made of flowing water talked about courage. A being of pure energy discussed the importance of hope. An ancient rock-like entity spoke about the value of thinking in new ways, but it was a small furry creature from a world at the edge of the galaxy who said something that everyone remembered. Before today, I thought the most important question was how strong you were, he said, in a tiny voice that somehow carried clearly through the hall. But the humans taught me that the real question is how much you care about others, Captain. Jae-min finally stood up to address the crowd. He had not planned to make a speech, but he felt he needed to say something. Honored beings, he began, we did not come here because we thought we were better than anyone else. We came here because when someone asks for help, the right answer is always yes. The hall erupted in sounds of approval from dozens of different species. They understood now why humanity deserved a place in the galactic community. When people ask me why Earth sent only one ship, Captain Jae-min continued, I tell them it is because one ship was all we needed, not because we are so powerful, but because we were willing to try something that no one else would attempt. He looked around at all the strange faces watching him, beings from worlds beyond imagination, creatures with thoughts and dreams he could barely comprehend. But they were all alive, and they all wanted to stay that way, just like humans did. We did not save the galaxy alone, he said. The brave beings who fought and died in the battle made our plan possible. Every species here contributed something important to our victory. Dr. So Young stepped up beside him. The virus worked because we combined human creativity with alien knowledge. We used information that dozens of species had gathered over thousands of years. Chief Engineer Park nodded. Our technology was built on principles that we learned from studying alien science. We could not have succeeded without the wisdom of others. Lieutenant Woo-jin spoke for his security team. The Devourers were defeated by cooperation, not by any one species acting alone. Elder Nixera raised her crystal arms for attention. There is one more thing that must be said, she announced. From this day forward, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. They have earned their place among us. The hall filled with sounds of celebration. Beings who had once looked down on humans as primitive newcomers now welcomed them as equals. The species that had sent only one ship had proven themselves worthy of respect. As the ceremony ended and the various species began returning to their homeworlds, Captain Jae-min received a personal message from Earth Command. The message was from Admiral Kim, the head of Earth Space Forces. Captain Jae-min, he said from the communication screen, the whole planet is proud of what you and your crew accomplished, but I have to ask, how did you know your plan would work? Captain Jae-min thought about the question for a moment, then smiled. Because, Admiral, that is what humans do best. When everyone else sees an impossible problem, we see a chance to prove that impossible things are possible. The Eternal Dawn left the assembly station. A few days later, heading back toward Earth, the small ship looked the same as when it had arrived, but everything had changed. The galaxy now knew that humanity belonged among the stars as they flew through space toward home. Lieutenant Hyjin asked her captain a question that had been bothering her. Sir, why do you think Command really sent only one ship? Was it really because they knew we could succeed? Captain Jae-min looked out at the stars and considered his answer. I think they sent us because they knew that if anyone was going to try something crazy enough to work, it would be humans, and if we failed, well, at least they would not lose their entire fleet. Finding out the crew laughed at this, but they also understood the deeper truth. Humanity had succeeded not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were willing to risk everything for others. The galaxy had asked why humanity sent only one ship. The answer was simple: because sometimes one ship with the right crew and the right heart can change everything. And from that day forward, whenever the galaxy faced a problem that seemed impossible to solve, the first question asked was always the same: what would the humans do?